Saluki basketball right around the corner. Hard to believe that the season is fast approaching, and it's time to introduce you to some more members of our staff. We, of course, had a really heavy summer of doing all these different features. Loved it so much, we thought we'd save two of the biggest personalities. Coach Showtime, and, of course, Riley Hoistad, who's going into his 7th year as athletic trainer for the Saluki Dogs. I mean, Riley, where'd the time go?
Oh, man. Feels like yesterday that I just got here, No, it's been awesome. Appreciate you having me on here. I always have a great conversation with you. But no, I've been really fortunate, with my job here and obviously meeting Taylor, my wife, and now having the big down here running the athletic department, Banterra Center during basketball games. So no, I love it here. Great community, great fan base, just good people in the athletic department.
And this past summer, you were able to get a bump in terms of now being the assistant AD for sports medicine here at Southern Illinois, which was a role I know for you probably didn't even know would be a possibility when you first got here, because I know Dave, of course, a huge part, and he just moved on to go to another career path for him. But just kind of what that meant to you to now continue that role and mold into it to yourself and really start to build the staff here.
Yeah, for sure. Coming into SIU, I got here with Dave the same time. I previously knew him at South Dakota State when I was going through school, and he was the football athletic trainer there. And so knowing that, this was the first time that he had been a director of sports medicine, I was thinking, he's going to be here for a little bit if it's a good job. And it is. And so I stuck it out, right? You wait long enough and you hopefully get that job, because it is a career goal, being a director of sports medicine, especially at a younger age. But being that I met Taylor here and her family's here, and actually now my family moved down here, my parents. So it's been awesome for me. It's been something that I really wanted to get into when I first got here. Just didn't know what that career path was going to be, whether it was going to be here at SIU or if it was going to be at another university down the road. So I'm really fortunate with how everything played out.
You mentioned your family moving down here. Of course, they moved from South Dakota, which that's where you're originally from. You went to South Dakota State, so you've been very familiar with the Missouri Valley Conference from a standpoint on the football side of things.
Absolutely.
And being connected to Southern. So when you were kind of navigating and going through, like, man, where are the best paths for me, what stood out about SIU when you were deciding back 7 years ago where you really wanted to go?
Yeah, I knew it was a good part of a basketball conference, right? Coming out of my master's degree, I was down at Texas A&M. I was working with the football program, and going through school and my first couple of jobs, I was either wanting to work with football or working with basketball. And this position kind of just ended up in my lap with, Dave reaching out. I was actually talking to him about a couple of jobs, and he just randomly one day was like, hey, would you be interested in basketball? And took it and came here for an interview. And at that point, Barry Hinson was the head coach. And, talking with him, talk about a fireball. There's all kinds of energy. It just felt so good and comfortable to come here. I knew the history of the Valley as a basketball conference, didn't necessarily know the history of Southern Illinois basketball, but right away I met a good buddy, Adam McCann. Name drop right there, and oh boy, did he give me the history right away. And so it's been awesome just learning about the 90s and the early 2000s, hearing about Brian, and then being able to be here with him coming back. I've just been so fortunate with the people that I've worked for. Talk about three head coaches, 3 different complete people, but also just 3 amazing people. That was one thing that I've really loved about being here, is that every head coach that I've been with is just a great person off and on the basketball court. So that's been a huge thing. So, coming into it, I was happy with the area of Southern Illinois, a little bit smaller, but there's so many good things to do outside of sports. But I knew that it was a good program and a good culture coming in.
I know it had to be even more of a special feeling when Coach Mullins got here, of when you started, of course, weren't married, didn't have Izzy. Then eventually you get married, you have Izzy. Meanwhile, Brian, coach, ends up, of course, welcoming in Keegan, Case, and his kids while he's here, which, of course, they get connected with Izzy. I know Katie, of course, his wife, a tremendous personality and a great woman, too. that's what has made, I think, the connection with you here even more special is your maturation and just your life process of growing here really coincided with Coach Mullins and his family, I know, too.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a great family. Katie is awesome. She, I'll love her forever. Their kids and Izzy, it was so awesome to see them grow up the last
Yeah.
couple of years, and Taylor and Katie's relationship that they got. It's just something that will always be in my heart and just very special, just being able to see those kids interact.
What's been for you now getting to know another coach? You mentioned you really enjoyed Coach Henson, Coach Mullins, and Coach Nagy. What's been your initial, I guess now, about 6, 7 months working with Coach Nagy? What have you enjoyed most? What did you enjoy about the initial process of getting to know him? And what's demanding? Because in your position, Riley, it's a huge position within the team, of course, and factoring in everybody's health and safety within the program.
Yeah, it's actually ironic. He was the head basketball coach at South Dakota State when I was there as a student. So I mean, he didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. And so when it was announced that he was getting the job, I kind of took a sigh of relief because I knew who he was coming in. Some of my friends grew up with his kids, and they knew the type of person that he was. And he's just another great human being and cares about you, not just about basketball, but cares about you and your family. And it's been awesome, him and his wife, Jamie, welcoming myself and Taylor and Izzy into the program as well. But, he's just he's a straight shooter with some stuff. And, he's got he gets some comments that, he's a little bit dry at times,
Yeah.
but he'll lay one in you and it'll get you to laugh. And just seeing how competitive he is with things outside of basketball, it's been really awesome to get to know him. But he's just a good guy and a little bit change of a pace of doing some things. But, we get up in the morning, we get after it, and then we get some time to recover in the afternoon as well. So, I think everything's been good with the transition of getting into some practice and some workouts with him.
Is he even as competitive in karaoke as you and Justin and Izzy were?
I think I had to step out. Iz had to take a bathroom break, and so I unfortunately
So
missed
you
his.
missed it.
I missed his song, which was a little bit disappointing. And then Izzy, she sings all the time in the car, at the house, wherever it may be. And the moment we got on stage, and she just went quiet. And then as soon as we got in the car, she's like, "Hey, I need you to play some more Frozen. That was really fun while we were at the house. So if you could turn that back on, it'd be much appreciated." And I was like, "All right, now you want to
Thanks,
sing?"
Iz.
Yeah. So no, it's been good. It's been really good.
When you're here for 7 years, Riley, that's not just the relationships you talk about with the coaches that you've worked with, but that's a lot of players too within that 7-year time span. And that's really why all of us choose this field. It's to be able to impact those lives in terms of the student athletes. What's been the biggest joy you've had just in terms of all the different players that you've had to work with throughout the 7 years?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. The coaches that we've had bring in the same type of people. So I've been around just great players of people,
Yeah.
And I think, learning about them before I became a husband and became a father, you have different things that you enjoy about that. But now just the last couple of years when I had goes back to Marcus Damask and Lance Jones and Trent Brown, kind of that original class, welcoming her in to the team as well, and it's the same thing with JD and Clarence and AJ. I mean, I could list the entire team going back to that class, but then, as each class leaves, another couple guys come in, and so this past season was Xavier Johnson, and his mom. They always would go say hi to Taylor and go say hi to Izzy, and so just seeing that core group right there, I mean, those guys are the ones that I've probably been closest with when they were here and since they've left as well, keeping in touch with how they're doing in professional basketball and how they're doing in their professional life. So, I mean, those are things that I'll always keep close. But, it's just been a roller coaster of guys coming in and leaving. But, they've all been really good to work with.
Look, it's tough for me to ask you this question because of what your job entails is a lot of private times with the athletes in terms of just them getting ready, et cetera. But is there just a funny story that you have off the top of your head of one that sticks out to you of a specific athlete during your time of, man, like that was just a hilarious moment? And it really has nothing to even do necessarily with your job. I'm sure that's 7 years. It's a lot of stories to shuffle through and a lot of personalities too.
Yeah.
But is there one that kind of sticks out to you in your mind?
Gosh, I think this one, probably would take the cake. Is that there was one summer conditioning workout that in the summers on Fridays we would either, run 110s or we'd be running hills. And I'm just a guy, I don't like standing outside and sweating, right? When it's hot in the summer here. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna run with the team. Not a big deal. Well, so we're doing summer condition, we're running up on the hill. You got to run up and then you just walk down. That's your recovery. Well, it was during COVID, so the freshman class just came in. So it was Dalton, Kyler, Steven Verplanken, and I think there was one, Eric Butler, had just got here. And they didn't know where to go for COVID because they missed the first couple of weeks. All the returners had been there and this and that. So
Fun time period.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sprinting up the hill, and I'm last every time. I mean, I'm not beating anybody. Well, I get to the top of the hill, and Dalton Banks is calling me, asking where to go. So I sprint down the hill while everybody else on the team is walking. It did not go over very well when we talked about conditioning work and ethic, I guess, in the film room. So I thought everything was fine. The next day they go in the film, and they got told that athletic trainer was working harder than them in the summer, and that it's not good. And Will Keller and Marcus Damas came into the training room, say, you ever do that again, you might not be working with the basketball team anymore. So I got a good kick out of that one. Because I answered the phone and I was breathing heavy. I couldn't talk, and no one knew why I sprinted down the hill except for myself. So everybody thought that I was just trying to be an overachiever. And, so I apologize, guys, that I got you in a little bit of trouble. But that's probably one that I'll definitely look back on and always laugh because there's only a few people that know why I was running down that hill.
Well, and I haven't seen you really jump in with Coach Nagy's conditioning, so
No.
you have learned your lesson.
Yeah, well,
you just don't, and I'm not saying, look, you are, my first memory of Riley Hoistad, Big Roldy, of course, his nickname within the program, is when I was at Indiana State and you competed in the manager games.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd always be like, man, like this athletic trainer's serious.
Oh, have to be, Yeah, no, that was actually, when you got this job, I was really excited about it because I just knew the energy that you brought. Because there was a couple times that I just watched your guys' little
manager game highlights.
Yeah, the highlights, but knowing that you'd stay up there and do us a little play-by-play. I mean, you don't always get that from the guys behind the scenes. So, yeah, I've since kind of retired. I've taken a step back. Being that it's that late when we're playing at home. Try to help out Taylor with bedtime instead of going and playing basketball at 10 o'clock at night. But it was fun back. Tony Wills and Robbie Dozier and those guys playing is. At one point I think we were number 2 in the country.
Yes,
we were definitely top 5. We had a pretty solid team.
I think you were in the running for Player of the Year.
I'm a role guy. Set screens, grab rebounds. I get people open.
Energy guy, dirty work.
Exactly.
That's what Riley Hoistad did. Riley, before we kind of just wrap things up here and look for the rest of the basketball season, we talked a lot about Taylor. Of course, for those that maybe don't know Taylor, of course, her main name, Poor. Yep. Coach Pat Poor, who, of course, longtime assistant here, of course, now working with Saluki Radio for us on a regular standpoint for Saluki football. I bring that up because you've obviously now part of Taylor's family where Saluki athletics, all different sports, have really started to become a part of your family. Just that evolution of when you got here of like, man, I'll probably be here maybe for a year or two, to now you're literally married to Saluki blood throughout your family.
Yeah, she went to high school in Carterville, went to school here, graduated, and Pat and Gwen. We can't forget about Gwen because she's the backbone of that family. But, again, talk about two amazing people and talk about two just absolutely passionate people. Pat is just a special person. I'll never forget the day that I came up into his office to ask him about Marion Taylor, and he's a pretty dry texter outside of, fist bumps and bicep curls. And so, I asked him if I could come talk to him, and he's probably like, well, what do you want to talk about in the middle of the football season? We got stuff to do. And I asked him about marrying his daughter, and I mean, he just, got so excited. And it's a special family to be a part of. I love it and I enjoy it every day. But knowing the history that he has as a football coach here and other places that he's been a part of, everybody speaks highly of him around the athletic department and around the community. But getting to know Pat and Gwen, because I actually met them before I even knew Taylor, so going out to their place at the lake. And so I've been very fortunate enough to, that butterfly effect of how it all managed and how it all worked out in meeting Taylor. And we talked a little bit in the summer, but, there was a couple months where we didn't really say much to each other. And then she randomly started working in the athletic department with Coach Kill, and it was like, shoot, I know who you are. And, we talked a little bit more, and just one thing led to another. So, he's awesome. And you never know what's going to come out of his mouth, but it's always going to be funny. He'll leave you laughing and wondering how you got to that point in the conversation. But yeah, just great person.
And he's a great person to have when you're about to pass out on the Y Trail in Provo, Utah.
Oh,
so,
yeah, he'll take care of you, brother.
Coach Poor, owe you my life. There's no question about that. Let's wrap up on this point, Riley. Look, I know everybody, I'm sure, throughout the community. Adam, I know for sure, is one of them. They'll be like, hey, how's the team looking? How's everybody looking? Look, there's a lot of basketball that's going to be played, and it's a new group that's playing with each other this year. But what have you just enjoyed about the team itself and this evolution? And, as we record this, you'll have the first scrimmage this weekend on the road against Iowa. But a lot of good opportunities for the team to really see what they have early on in this season.
Yeah, I think we have a really tough schedule in the non-conference, but I think we have a really good team that's going to be athletic, and we're going to be able to compete with all of those teams. Size-wise, we're pretty big, we're long, we're able to stretch the floor, so that's exciting. And I think we're going to surprise some people, and there's just so much unknown in the Valley this year that
absolutely.
I mean, outside of Bradley, everybody lost their team, and so you're just throwing darts at the wall for everybody else. So I think it'll be exciting. But I think the one thing that I'm most excited for, this is non-basketball related, is just continuing to work with my guy Justin. I mean, talk about a stand-up dude. I mean, he just walks around with his hands out because he's holding up the walls in this place, basketball or non-basketball. I mean, that guy, I love him. I know he's done so much for me outside of basketball, just as a person and growing and helping me out with things that we have in basketball. And, I crack on him, he cracks on me, but, I mean, it's a guy that hopefully he's as here as long as I am because, it's a good duo to have, and man, I love that guy.
I'm glad you brought him up before we officially wrapped up because I have to ask you, were you the one that came up with his nickname, which for, of course, former players, everybody within the program has started to learn that, with his nickname being Pickle.
Oh.
Like, was that you? Was that the first? Were you the first one that?
I don't know if I can take credit for it being the first, but I'll take credit for passing it on from year to year, and just forming new ways to incorporate that into a daily conversation with him is something that I'm always looking forward to doing.
It's funny because my first time hearing it was about the same interaction that Coach Gibbs had when he was here, because Coach Gibbs came up to me in a practice. He's kind of, just standing next to me as I'm filming. He's like, hey, I got a question for you. I was like, yeah. He's like, what's pickle mean? About the same interaction I had with you. Like, what does this mean? And it's like, well, it's just Justin's personality from time to time.
Yeah, and the best is when each year when you get new guys on the team, they have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
And so you can really get a guy confused and have him rattled for 5-10 minutes when you just ask him why he's being such a pickle. Because then, what is that? Why me? What's wrong with, and you just can keep going until they find out. So, no, it's like I said, I can't take credit for the first one, but I'll make sure that it keeps going.
No doubt, and we'll continue to pass that tradition on for years and years and years as long as both of you guys are here. Riley, really appreciate the time, appreciate your friendship more than anything else, especially with you, Izzy. And I guess actually that's my last thing I got to tell you. I know I've said probably last thing like for the last 3 questions. That's 10 what voices do
Absolutely.
from time to time. When did the tradition of riding the cooler start with Izzy? Because after big Saluki wins, there's nothing better than when Coach Watson and I are sitting there and we get to see you rolling out the coolers and Izzy's just sitting there right on top.
Yeah, I think it started 2 summers ago for summer youth camp. I was pushing a couple out, and I didn't know where Taylor was at, and I had to do something, and so I just put her up there, which was dicey because she wasn't quite old enough to figure out what was going on. And then last basketball season, I think it started with my kit, my rolly kit, and she's like, oh, that looks like something I can ride. So she would stop me and have me put her on it. And then it just transpired to like, oh, that's got wheels on it. I can sit on that too. And so now, she won't leave the arena until she rides on every cooler that's out on the court into the training room. And it's turned into my kit, the towel bin, and both of the coolers. And Taylor is notorious for never leaving. She'll give me a hug and a kiss after the game at 9 o'clock saying she's going to leave, and we get done with post-game talk in the locker room, and it's 9:45 and she's still out on the court running around. So, she's now learned that she can tell Taylor that she needs to wait for Dad to push the carts in before she can go home. So, yeah, I think I need to be better at getting out of the locker room quicker so we can get those done because, there's been many a times, especially those 8 p.m. tips, that Izzy is rolling around on the court at about 11:15, and we're the only 3 people in the arena minus the facility staff. And so it probably doesn't look great that a 2-year-old is up at, 11 o'clock. But she doesn't look tired. I'll tell you that.
No.
Her cardio is on point because she'll be running around.
I'm telling you right now, Izzy Hoistad may be a cross-country runner at some point with the endurance and the conditioning that she does.
We're looking for her to be a golfer. That way I have an excuse to get out to the course. But, hey, Taylor, I think Izzy needs to go practice a little bit. We'll be back in 4 hours.
Yeah, and be a really good member at Apple Creek.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's gonna be one of the areas for sure. Riley, appreciate the time, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Riley Hoistad. For more on Saluki basketball coverage, you know where to stay. That's with us with Saluki Athletics.